Hello, everyone. Howie here. Tuesday. What is today's date, Maria? Maria is back. Tuesday, February 11th. Maria is here. She took a sabbatical. I think she received like 6 PhDs in the last 6 weeks. So we're ready to go. All right. So I'm going to start with some immigration, and the reason is we've been focusing on some global issues. We have a lot of comments about Greenland and Panama and Mexico. A lot of angry people about Greenland and the Monroe Doctrine. So I'm tempted to start with some comments, but I think we should start with the Pope because the Pope ties everything together. Since we're doing this kind of geopolitical soaring like an eagle above the world to check things out, and the Pope has sent a letter to the U.S. bishops. Now, a little background. So the Pope, as many of you know, Pope Francis, he gets involved in politics. He has this uncanny ability to say he's not involved and then gets really involved. Right. Let's lay it up front. I'm Catholic. I respect the Pope. He's my Pope. He's the head of the church that I belong to. It's God's church. It's Jesus's church. Okay. And Pope is a member of that church. He is the head of the church. So if he says something and he makes an official declaration on faith and morals, that's a technical thing. Faith and morals, official documents. Well, we have to accept. Right. We have to accept it. Okay. But he can say all kinds of things about other issues, including current events, and we can disagree respectfully, like a father, like a grandfather that you respect. And you know what? He just has a way of. I'm going to tell you something, and I'm uncomfortable saying it, but it just is what it is. I'm a 52-year-old man, and I can't. I got to be myself. His manner of doing things, I just don't think is constructive too often. He has a way of not. Pope John Paul II was so clear, crystal clear on things. Pope Francis has a way of talking very loosely and throwing things out there that seems to cause confusion sometimes. Some people find it to be beneficial because it opens discussion. I think it's ambiguous, and it leads to when there's confusion, there's shadows, and when there's shadows, misunderstanding takes place. Okay, and then he puts out official letters, and we look at it. So he spoke about immigration issue in the United States. Of course, we know that Trump, Tom Homan, the borders are, and of course, Kristi Noem is the new director of the Secretary of Homeland Security. Let's summarize. I mean, the main focus right now of Homan and ICE is to get rid of criminals. Okay, people that are here who have been convicted of crimes, who are charged of crimes, and the great majority who have been ordered to leave the country by prior judges during the Biden administration and have not been forced to leave or have not left. So they're around them. Many of them are gang members and involved in felonies. How anybody can have a problem with removing these people from the country is just beyond me. I mean, I really do get the other side. People that came here illegally, and let's just say, because it's illegal to cross the border and not go through the proper channels. And I don't want to hear about amnesty. Amnesty is a legal process, but there are proper channels. So if you don't go through the channels, you are here illegally. But if you're here illegally and you're just doing the best you can and you're trying to make a new life and you're scared, I get it. I get that you're concerned. I get people are concerned for them. But let's focus on what's happening. What's happening is criminals, convicted criminals, or people charged, or active gang members, people that have been told to leave the country, have been judges have ruled that way and are not leaving, that they're grounding them up, sending them back, or going to bring them to Guantanamo Bay. So the Pope has said that this is what's going on in the United States is not moral. It's not right. So he sends a letter to the U.S. bishops. Before we get that, though, I want to remind you of something. This is not the first time. This is not the first time where, in recent memory, where the Pope has said something. And I was going to remind you because I think it's important. I'm hesitant to do this. I'm still in many ways an altar boy in that sense. Not an altar boy in that I'm an angel, but in the sense that, I look up to priests and bishops and, of course, cardinals and popes. But, I during the election, he's on the plane. I think if you remember, we did videos on it, and people asked him about the election, and he's not going to get involved, not going to get involved. And then he says this, and I have the quote, and I just want to bring it up because I want to remind you. Now, you tell me, am I causing trouble, or is this somebody who I believe is unnecessarily creating some an area for people to misunderstand? This is what he said, quote, "Not voting is ugly. It is not good. You must vote. You must choose the lesser evil." Who is the lesser evil? That lady, Kamala Harris, or that gentleman, Donald Trump. I'm adding their names. That lady or that gentleman. I don't know. Everyone in conscience has to think and do this. Both are against life, be it the one who kicks out migrants or be it the one who kills babies. I'm only going to spend like 1 minute on this because at the time, I found it infuriating to make the moral equivalency of kicking out migrants, which, first of all, just to use the word migrants, when we're talking about we're talking about illegal immigrants coming here illegally, breaking the official law, and Homan specifically removing convicted criminals or people who are charged or gang members. An equivalency with killing babies. And you can, we don't need to go on, but look how angry I get. It's absurd. Killing babies or kicking out migrants. So this is the stage. So now he does this, and let me bring up the letter here. All right, let me share it with you. Let me share. Okay. Here we go. This is letter to the Holy Father Francis to the bishops of the United States of America, and it is from the Vatican, 10th of February, yesterday, 2025, signed Francis. I think we should read it. I think we should go through here, and I'm gonna make comments. I'm gonna tell you what I think. Dear brothers in the episcopate, I am writing today to address a few words to you in these delicate moments that you are living as pastors of the people of God who walk together in the United States of America. 1. The journey from slavery to freedom that the people of Israel traveled, as narrated in the book of Exodus, invites us to look at the reality of our time, so clearly marked by the phenomenon of migration as a decisive moment in history to reaffirm not only our faith in God, who is always close, incarnate, migrant, and refugee, but also the infinite and transcendent dignity of every human person. All right, he's laying it down in biblical terms, immediately identifying the migrants with the people of Israel leaving Egypt as slaves. I'm not, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go through this carefully. Right away, setting that stage. I get it. We all get it. We all know the analogy. We're all slaves. We're all slaves to sin and death. And Jesus died on the cross and set us free from sin and death. That's the true slavery. Okay. Now, any kind of slavery that takes place on earth is atrocious. It should be condemned fully, of course. I don't know if everybody crossing the border into the United States is a slave. So I know friends say all analogies limp. So the analogy limps a little bit. Not everybody crossing the border, the southern border of the United States in particular, is a slave. Okay, just saying. But I do like that he says this. Infinite and transcendent dignity of every human person. And if you watch this show, you know I talk about dignity of the human person. Every single person has dignity and needs to be respected. Whether they're rich, they're poor, they're tall, they're short, whatever. The color of their skin, no matter what category you want to place them. The dignity of that human being is from God because they are a child of God. So I'm 100% with that. That's absolutely true. Number 2, these words with which I begin are not an artificial construct. You know what's so funny? So when you begin that way, it usually means that they are an artificial construct. Even a cursory examination of Christ's social doctrine emphatically shows that Jesus Christ is the true Emmanuel. True. He did not live apart from the difficult experience being expelled from his own land because of an imminent risk to his life, and from the experience of having to take refuge in a society and a culture foreign to his own. Of course, Joseph was told in the dream to take Mary and the infant and go to Egypt. Jesus was raised in Egypt. Okay. Herod was the slaughter of the innocents. Herod killed the babies. All right. There was a threat. That sounds like asylum. Asylum seekers are a separate category. It's really important. It's really important. This is what Pope John Paul did so well. It's really important to be clear. Okay? Slaves are slaves. People living in other countries who would prefer to be here is different. Slaves, people who prefer to be here but are not slaves. Two different categories. Second, people whose lives are in danger by a government. That's asylum. Okay, Jesus going to be killed by Herod. He's the ruler. Joseph takes him, goes to Egypt. And Jesus, of course, does know human pain. That's what's so marvelous, miraculous, mystical, that he shared in everything but sin, hunger, cold, hate, bigotry, everything. He knows suffering more than we'll ever know. Of course, he shared in. He shares in every. There's nothing that can take place on earth that a human being can experience that Jesus has not experienced already in terms of the suffering. He suffered everything. He became sin for us. Sin nailed to a cross. I would really like to have the Pope on. I really would. I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to this, I just have confidence because I love God and I love the truth. And nobody owns Scripture. It's God's Scripture. And you read it and you look at it and it's God's truth and His beauty. And what I don't like when things are manipulated in certain ways to prove a point ahead of time. I am not trying right now to prove a point that nobody should be concerned about immigrants. You're going to see as I go through this. I really do think we have a problem. We have people in this country who are good people. They came here illegally. You always have to acknowledge that. And maybe they're living really great lives and they are contributing. I mean, just to kick them out doesn't seem right to me, to be honest with you. That doesn't seem right. But the criminals, gang members, people who are charged with crimes, drunk driving and killing people, yes. These words with which I begin are not an artificial construct. All right. He did not live apart from the difficult experience of being expelled from his own land because of an imminent risk to his life, and from the experience of having to take refuge in a society and a culture foreign to his own. The Son of God, in becoming man, also chose to live the drama of immigration. You know, yes, of course. Of course he chose to live. But my point is he chose to live every aspect. Every trial that can undergo a human being can undergo, he chose to experience. As immigration is this one special thing. How about depression? How about anxiety? How about nervousness? How about bigotry? How about seeing your mother being accused of perhaps getting pregnant before marriage when Mary could have been stoned to death? What about maybe the gossip that took place in that? That's suffering too. There's all forms of suffering. So to pinpoint immigration as one specific form of suffering, of course, he's talking about that because that's the issue. But Jesus wasn't reincarnated just to deal with immigration. He wasn't an immigration officer. He was wisdom incarnate. He was the suffering of humanity combined into a moment and a time and a place to expiate pain and suffering for eternal life for us if we choose to accept it. So this constant refrain. He's an immigrant. He's an immigrant. Yeah, he was also a carpenter. He was also a son. He was also a cousin. He was many things. I like to recall, among other things, the words which Pope Pius XII began his apostolic constitution on the care of migrants, which is considered the Magna Carta of the Church's thinking on migration. Quote, the family of Nazareth in exile, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, immigrants in Egypt and refugees there to escape the wrath of an ungodly king, are the model, the example, and consolation of immigrants and pilgrims of every age and country, of all refugees of every condition who, beset by persecution or necessity, are forced to leave their homeland, beloved family, and dear friends of for foreign lands. Yes, 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 yes. It's absolutely the case. Okay, that's just everything there is. Yes, you can have both. You can have legal means and you can have great compassion for people who are in terrible situations and want to flee to another land in order to live a better life, in order to get an education for their kids, in order for their daughters to not to have to cover their faces, in order for their daughters to be educated. I don't think those people want their daughters to come here and compete against boys or have boys enter their locker room. So isn't that ironic? By the way, Maria, is there any way you can find that video of I put it on WhatsApp the other day of Marco Rubio talking about Cubans in Miami? I don't know if that's there. If we can find that, that would be great. I think it's from a day or two ago. Okay, so let me keep going. All right. Likewise, Jesus Christ, loving everyone with a universal love, educates us in the permanent recognition of the dignity of every human being without exception. True, 100%. In fact, when we speak of infinite and transcendent dignity, absolutely, I love the word dignity. We wish to emphasize that the most decisive value possessed by the human person surpasses and sustains every other judicial consideration that can be made to regulate life in society. Okay. I would sum that up that the dignity of the person, the law of the dignity of the individual trumps all of the laws. Yes. Yes. Okay. So, but let's get away from the immigration issue for a second. If somebody in your society, your town, your community creates a heinous crime, does that person have no dignity? No, they still have the dignity God gave them. Did they commit a crime that's heinous? Yes. Should they be locked up? Yes. Why? To protect the other people, protect the other people's dignity. So the person's dignity being the supreme law of the land, if you will, doesn't mean that they just get to do whatever they want or there's no consequences to their actions. I mean, this is great to remind us about the dignity of every human being. If people are looking down on immigrants, looking down on anybody as they're morally superior, ethically superior, or just have more value as a human being, then that's a sin. It's a downright sin. But at the same time, to acknowledge the equal dignity, equal degree of dignity in each person, and the equal degree of love for God from God to that person, thinks that that law of dignity allows for that person to do anything they want at all times. It's ridiculous. Every country, every society in the world has rules and laws where people can't do certain things. And if you stop the person from doing that act, you're not hurting their dignity. You're protecting the dignity of the community as a whole and the individuals. I have followed closely the major crisis that is taking place in the United States with the initiation of a program of mass deportations. The rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tactically or explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. Whoa. The rightly formed conscience. All right, so let's assume we have a rightly formed conscience. I don't know. Jesus, help us here. Cannot fail to make critical judgment. So you have to be critical of this and express its disagreement with any measure that tactically or explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. Wait, you can't see. Is he saying that you can't see a migrant, the person? Let's just stop using the word person, but the person, migrant, the person that crossed the border. Can we just call him that? Joe. Joe crossed the border. You cannot see Joe's illegal status. Illegal status. In other words, that he's not allowed to be here. Okay, which every country, just about every, I don't know about every country, but most countries have rules about entering and leaving their country. Try to, in the United States, go to Canada for the week, go to Quebec City, beautiful city, and what do you got? You got to go through the Border Patrol, and they ask you for ID and a passport. If I drive 8 hours from here, something like that, I'll get there, and they won't let me through. And if I want to come back, if I get through with my passport and I come back from Canada to the United States, guess what? The U.S. immigration officers will ask me for my passport. If I snuck around the booth somehow, I would be in Canada illegally. The illegal status of some migrant, of Joe, you can't see that as criminality. That's nonsense. Of course it's criminality. It's a definition of criminality. Criminality means you break the law. Now, if you are really saying there could be, let's be good philosophers, there could be some situations where literally somebody has a gun to their head and they run across a line in order to save their life. And then you say, you're not going to, they broke the law by going over the line, but you're not going to say, okay, there are exceptions, but not for the millions of people coming across like this. Maria, any luck with that video of Marco? Yeah, it's Marco Rubio. It was on X. He was talking about Cubans going back and forth to Cuba and receiving subsidies from the United States. It was on Twitter. If not, we'll find it during the break. There's no problem. Okay. So you can't identify the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. At the same time, one must. This is now he because he's writing this, so he has to have some kind of balance here. So he says, at the same time, one must recognize the right of a nation to defend itself and keep communities safe from those who have committed violent or serious crimes while in the country or prior to arrival. There it is. It's right. I love it. It's snuck right in the middle of paragraph number 4. That's the crux of it. At the same time, one must recognize the right of a nation to defend itself. The United States has a right to defend itself and keep communities safe, keep your community, my community safe from those who have committed violent or serious crimes while in the country or prior to arrival. What is Tom Homan doing? That's what they're doing. That's who they're rounding up. That said, the act of deporting people who in many cases have left their land for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment damages the dignity of many men and women and of entire families and places them in a state of particular vulnerability and defenselessness. This is where the vagueness is so unproductive. He's either saying that we should let anybody and all people in, or he's saying nothing. That's all it comes down to. He's either saying that we should not have a border, and anybody who wants to come to this country who's poor or whatever insecurity as they define it, then they should come in. And if they come in illegally, it's not criminal, and therefore we should leave them alone. Or he's saying nothing. He's saying nothing at all. Because if you say you can't let the country has the right to defend itself and keep communities safe from those who have committed violent crimes or serious. Well, then that's what we're doing. So this whole little gray area of that last sentence, I'm going to just focus on that last sentence. That said, the act of deporting people who in many cases have left their land for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment. Who's the judge of what poverty is, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious detachment of the environment? That's why I'm saying he's saying nothing. That's why you have an immigration policy. We do let people in because of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, serious deterioration of their environment. We do. We take in refugees from Afghanistan, didn't we? We take in refugees from Haiti. We take in refugees from oppressive governments. We have asylum seekers, and there's a process. We have normal immigrations. How about all the people who are online legally waiting? What does Pope Francis, I would love for him to sit here, Holy Father, I'm asking you right now. So the person crossing the border who is not proving any of this, they're not proving extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, and serious deterioration of they're not proving that because nobody's asking. They're just coming across. And then they come into a city and they get government assistance. That person, why Pope Francis is that person allowed to come, but the person who's coming from Romania, who's going through the legal channels and wants to study here, isn't. Why? What's the difference? Is the dignity of the poor person more? I think it's almost like you're putting the dignity of the poor person above the dignity of the non-poor person or the person who's using the legal channels. This is incoherent. You can have both. It's called an immigration policy. And for him not to acknowledge, and this is the bottom line with this issue, and it's annoying, for him and others not to acknowledge that there was no policy, or there was no policy that was enforced, or there was no consistent policy, and the giant gaps. And then he uses all this language. I'm not going to go on. You know why? Because it's fluff. All the language about building bridges. I talk about building bridges. You don't build bridges on sandbars. You build bridges on rock, and rock is solid, clear, legal, and moral language and understanding between two parties so that the bridge doesn't fall down. And this idea of walls, well, how many times do we have to hear the Vatican has walls? It's not about walls. It's about doors. Don't build walls. Don't build walls. No, I say build as many walls as you want. Make sure there are doors. Make sure there are windows. You know, it's Jubilee year, right? In December 2025, every 25 years, a Jubilee year in church, that Jubilee of hope. And, you know, symbolically, in December, the Pope pushed open doors. These big, giant doors at St. Peter's, big, giant doors. He pushes them open. Doors. He pushed the doors open. What good is a door if there's no wall? Wouldn't it be you're riding into a new country. You're in the medieval times. You're going to take over. You get to this big giant door. You're going to knock down the door. And one of your soldiers comes out and says, there's no walls. Why don't we just go around? What's the point of a door without a wall? You need walls. Walls are important. Walls are rules. Monasteries have rules. You know, I said this the other day in a comment. I said it to somebody, and I said, we were talking about, it was a beautiful, beautiful writing by Father Joseph. He's on Twitter. And he was talking about the rule of the monastic rules and the relationship between St. Benedict and St. Scholastica, his sister. And that, you know, the tension between following the rules and all the rules, the end in themselves. No. And I wrote something, and I wrote, I'm going to tell you what I wrote. I wrote this. And I think I wrote something pretty good here. It came out. Okay. And what I wrote is the following. So I was talking about the idea that you have rules. You try to balance them with freedom and the ultimate. Why do you have rules? Okay. So let me bring this up. Bear with me. Come on. This is good. You don't mind. I know you don't mind. All right. Almost there. Almost. I did a lot on Twitter yesterday. I am becoming a Twitter nut. It's fun, you know? Boy, oh boy. How we doing, Maria? Any luck with that thing? Okay. Oh, Maria. I see. I got it. All right. This is interesting. I can't find it. Maria, I can't find my own thing here. All right. It's on Twitter. I can't find my own thing about oh, there it is. No. I thought I had it. Here it is. All right. So this really applies. All right. Actually, maybe I'll share it with you. I'll share it. Should I do this, Maria? I'm going to share my Twitter thing. By the way, follow me. I have like 3 people. So, you know, if you want to follow me, you could be like one of the first, you know, you could say you were one of the first people, Howie Haynes Twitter account. All right. So watch this. So this was a great post, right? About Saint Benedict and Scholastica. That's his sister. And so it was about, and the writer his name is Father Joseph Hudson. He's excellent. I really encourage you to follow this. He's a monk, and he's getting his PhD now in Rome. He's fantastic. Okay. So here, And I said to the following, because he talked about the tension between the rules and freedom. And I said, Amen, beautifully said. The tension is the key, like a stringed instrument, too loose and no music, too tight and it snaps. It's impossible to string it just right. Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible. With God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. This is a great reminder to hand it all over. Each night before bed, my wife, my daughter, and I pray as a family. Please order our days and let us be more obedient than ever to that ordering. Thank you for doing so. It's amazing how God answers continually. And here's the line that I had in reference to this immigration. I think it applies. Rules are like fences. They keep children from getting lost, but they should never stop a father from getting in. Okay? And that really cuts to the chase of this whole issue here. Because we have laws to protect our children. We have laws to protect our interests, our homes. Charity begins at home. Love is ordered. The love for the stranger is not the same as the love for your child and wife. It's not. You don't give the stranger all your food and let your wife and daughter starve. You don't. You don't. It's not all equal. And this, Pope Francis, I'm telling you, listen, I'm calling you out, my friend, my brother, because we have to correct each other. This is when people turn from the church. You know what else they say? They say, this is what's wrong with the Catholic Church. They're not married. They don't get it. And you know what? There's a ting in that, in my instinct about this. Anybody who's a father and a husband thinks differently than what you just wrote, because there's an instinct to protect, and they know love is ordered. It's ordered. There's a different ordering of love. Order our days, order our love appropriately. God first. God is first. But if you're going to tell me I have to love someone I never met and who's able-bodied and 50 years old and a male more than I'm going to love my teenage daughter, you got another thing coming. And that's not from God. God's not telling me that. He's not. Because it's my vocation to be a father. It's my vocation. It's my calling from God himself to be the father and to be the husband to my bride. So that love comes right after my love for God. Now, if I have plenty, of course, let's give it away. Give away, give away, give away. But Pope Francis, you're missing the boat. If you just give it away in terms of letting anybody in, that same criminal can come and I don't even say the word out of my, do horrible things to children, to my daughter, to my wife. Is that what you're talking about? It's not criminality. Your letter is utter nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It's utter nonsense. I'm correcting you. Fraternal correction is my job. You want to talk about Jesus' own words? Correct your brother. You're wrong. You're wrong. You should say clearly, the United States should have a clear immigration policy of how to come in, who can come in, what the proper channels are. And please really keep a door open, an easy door to get through for people who are seeking true asylum, for people who are truly suffering. And people that are coming, don't cross the border unless you really need to come. And if you need to come, you go to that asylum seeking spot. Because you know what? Americans too have dignity. They also are children of God. They may have more money than other people. They may live in a land that's more free than others. Does that cancel out their dignity? Does it cancel out the dignity of my wife or my child or my vocation to protect them? This is when people say that's what's wrong with Catholics. Their priests and their bishops and their popes aren't married and they don't get it. They don't get what it is to really protect because they don't have anything coming from their loins. My loins and the product of my loins are going to be protected over a stranger. Sorry. If you think you're a better Christian than me, then you're a better Christian. We're going to move on. See, I lost my temper. No, I didn't lose my temper. You know what I'm doing? I'm speaking from the heart. If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm really open to it. All right, Maria, where are we going? What am I doing next? Hamas. We have to talk about Hamas. All right. Any comment? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, Maria's pointing out that the moral parallels he's because you're dealing also with cartels. So where do they fit in? Actually, it's a really great point. You're basically dealing with foreign armies. These cartels are like basically they're armed. They're equipped to fight better than most countries are. So how do you fix them? Amen. Maria is she oversimplifying a complex situation, and that's why I'm saying he's either just wants to say America has no border and we have no right to stop anyone, which I think he really wants to say, but he can't because he just knows he can't say that, or he's saying nothing at all. And Maria's right. There it is. You see, I just went for like, how long did I go? I went for like a half hour. Maria just summarized it in like one sentence. He's oversimplifying a very complex situation. Amen. Amen. All right. Let's talk about where are my glasses? Let's talk about. So, what are we going to do about Gaza? So, this is interesting, right? So, Hamas says they're not releasing the hostages, and this is Trump's response. So, they're supposed to release hostages, and Trump says the following. Let's see what he says. Trump had a pretty interesting statement. I'm going to say it. I want to get it exactly. Okay. And this is it. Should I share it? Yeah, I'll share it. Here we go. And this is where the Trumpster comes in, man. All right. So Hamas says they're not going to release hostages, at least according to the timeline. And Trump says, quote, as far as I'm concerned, if all the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it, it being the peace agreement, the ceasefire, and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, Trump said. He said he wanted the hostages released in mass instead of a few at a time. Quote, we want them all back, close quote. Let's look at each. This is when a leader talks, Trump's a leader. Okay. And he does what he says he's going to do. And I think Hamas has made a big mistake. I mean, if you're Hamas, you made a mistake. If you're Israel, maybe not. Because Trump is going to back up his words. And look what he said. Look how short. As far as I'm concerned, if all ALL of the hostages aren't returned by 12 o'clock, and he just picks an arbitrary time. Seems like a good time because you know what? It doesn't really matter with these people anymore. They're going to break every arrangement. So you know what? 12 o'clock Saturday. What is that? This was yesterday? 5 days from now. 12 o'clock. Sure. 12 o'clock. I think it's an appropriate time. You see that sentence right there? I think it's an appropriate time. It really sums up why Trump is like a president that we've really almost never had before. He's not going into meetings. He's not picking a time and a date. I think it's an appropriate time. Is basically, to me, he's basically saying it really just doesn't matter anymore. That was it. What you just did is that's it. It doesn't matter. And you know what? If it's tonight, tomorrow, it's over. I think 12 is an appropriate time. In other words, you're done. You have pulled out of the deal for the last time. I would say cancel it. Cancel the ceasefire, and all bets are off, and let hell break out. I don't know what hell means. I say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday. Now, if you're Hamas, what do you do? We'll see. Now, Jordan, right now, he's meeting. I think he's talking to Jordan right now. Let's see. Uh, he. Let's see. There's a good site that I would recommend you follow. It's called what's it called? Open Source. Open Source really follows this stuff like step by step. Okay, it's open source on Twitter. Open Source Intel is the name of it, and they're monitoring real time news and open source intelligence, Middle East and U.S. global events. And this is what's been happening. He basically, President Trump to King Abdullah of Jordan. Sorry, Egypt. Jordan and Egypt have enough territories to absorb Palestinians. So what he's trying to do is he wants them to take in the Palestinians. Okay, he doesn't want them to go back into Gaza. And let me keep going down with their thread here. Let's see. The Saudi channel reports that Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's visit to the White House has been postponed until further notice. Sources say Cairo is furious over statements from the U.S. and Israel and has sent a clear message from in Washington. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has said he's going to stick with Trump's new timeline of Saturday at 12. So Israel has agreed. President Trump has successfully secured the release of Mark Fogel, an American detained in Russia since 2021. See what's happening? Russia just released somebody. 2021. How long was Biden president? 2020 to 2024. Did he get the guy released? Trump's been president 2 weeks. Trump brings the guy home. Trump, I have a deadline until Saturday. I personally think Hamas will not meet the deadline. They're going to play tough guy, and we'll see who the tough guy is. This is going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. I think that for the Palestinian people, this idea of Trump building them, basically, he's saying they'll build them new houses. They'll build them. At this point, I don't see how they go back. If they go back, how do you separate the Hamas fighters from the people who want to live peacefully, the Palestinians? And it seems like if they go back, it's just going to start again. So this is going to go on, and we'll see. Let's Maria, I'm going to play a little break, okay, and then we'll come back. We got a Hillsdale message here. Let me see where it is. Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Maria's right. I mean, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Maria's saying that at this point, after 100 years, I go, how do you? I don't. I think this idea of giving them land somewhere else and letting these other nations absorb them is really the way to go. I don't see how you get out of this vicious cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a video from Hillsdale that we love. Okay, let me share it with you, and then we'll take a 2-minute break. This is Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, a course they offer. And okay, let's do it.
The history of the Roman Republic is a cautionary tale. We are going on a journey that will teach us a great many things about a free society.
The Roman Republic was one of the finest systems of government that the world has ever known. The reason we should study the ancients is because it makes us better human beings.
In the progressive modern world, we want to think that human beings can be perfected. But really what history teaches us is that we're the same people. If we as a free society think that we are facing unusual tensions and events, You've got to understand that there were mobs in Rome. There was all kinds of trouble that they were facing. We don't have to be Rome. We learn from the Roman Republic the lessons of citizenship, the lessons of tyranny, and what it all means for a free society to face difficult times, particularly if those difficult times are a result of their own success.
The histories are themselves a kind of moral education, a political education. We as a nation would be far better off if we spent more of our time studying those examples from Roman history.
Why should you take the time to study these old and complicated things? The answer is it's the best single thing you can do.
The study of the Roman Republic is really one of the most important things we can do as Americans. Our founders, Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Madison, all studied the Roman Republic as they created the American Republic. It's very important for us to understand why. This is our course on the Roman Republic. Let's begin.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump into there's a good article here. All right. It's we're going to talk about we're going to continue with the Hamas thing. Okay. So if we have let's see, Trump is hosting Jordan's king, renews his insistence that the U.S. can control and redevelop Gaza. And I like the word redevelop here because it introduces this theme that we were talking about last week with, Monroe Doctrine and Trump's interest in Greenland and why, and dealing with Canada with tariffs, and then Canada responding with 10,000 personnel helping reinforce the border. Mexico, tariffs. Mexico responds with sending 10,000 troops to the border. We have Panama Canal and China being involved in the operation of the canal, and Marco Rubio going down there, and China, and Panama pulls out of their agreement with China, and this idea of protecting the Western Hemisphere. I had somebody respond in a comment, and they said, 1824 or whatever it was, as if the world's not the same, and I want to say something. I think it's so telling when people bring up these kind of arguments, because of course the world is different. That's obvious. But to think that like basic economics, basic geographical factors have changed. The proximity of people is still a vital. If somebody's in your space, they're in your space. You know that as a personal relationship. And it doesn't matter if it was 100 years ago or now. And it's still the same. Our weapons have changed. But China having interest in our hemisphere, being operating ports in our hemisphere, is still a concern if China is considered somebody that's an adversary. And to think that because times have changed and weapons have changed and our communication has changed, that the basic fundamental ways of economics and strategic protection and military have not changed. You know why? Because at the end of the day, human nature has not changed. And that really reviews something about the progressive mind. Okay? I'm not calling them liberals anymore because they're really not liberals. We're the liberals. We're the classical liberals that really believe in an open-minded dialogue and trying to pursue truth as best we can and being open to correction. And that human nature does not change. That dignity that the Pope is talking about in each person has not changed. Is the dignity of the person who lived 2,000 years ago less than the dignity of somebody living now? No, it's the same human being. Not the same person, but the same dignity in each of those human beings who are very different people in different times and places. So the progressive left really thinks that we've evolved to a point where we can just exist without any of these concerns. So it has nothing to do whether it's 100 years ago or not. It's still the Monroe Doctrine in terms of the United States self-interest is really relevant. And if we are more powerful than other countries, well, then it just there is a real politic component of that, and it's just the way it is. All right. Trump hosting Jordan's king renews his insistence that the U.S. can control and redevelop Gaza. So let's look at this word redevelop. He is a real estate guy. And I think we can never forget that Trump's manner comes off that way, okay? Like Mark Andreessen said about him, to be a master of real estate and a master of communication and a complex systems guy, which Trump is a complex systems guy. He has an ability to understand lots of moving parts. And this idea of taking over Gaza, he says he doesn't going to buy it, but they'll take it over and run it. See, he thinks as a developer. And, even like the Greenland issue, of course it's a sovereign nation, but if it was for sale or an agreement was made, I mean, people purchase and sell things all the time. So Trump just thinks that way, whether it's right or wrong, whether you disagree, it's the way he's thinking. If you want to understand Trump, then and if you don't like Trump, you should try to understand him, because it would make you a better opponent. If you want to, in the arena of ideas and if in the ballot box, you want to convince people not to vote for Trump, well, understand who Trump is then. And if you reject it, then reject it. But it's important to understand that's how he thinks. He's thinking about, I personally think it's fine. I think it's good. I think it's a way to lead, where you say, look, this is, why can't we purchase something if somebody's willing to sell it, or if we can make an arrangement? Why can't we take over that area? Why not? Why can't I buy that building? Well, people live there. Well, apartment buildings sell all the time with people living in them. You purchase the building, people stay there, live there. You make new arrangements, and okay. So Trump, he's going into the Gaza situation this way. Like, look, let's give them another place to go. This is never going to end. So Washington, President Trump hosted Jordan's King Abdullah II at the White House on Tuesday and renewed his suggestions that Gaza could be emptied of residents, controlled by the U.S., and redeveloped as a tourist area, a plan that could likely only work if the Arab nation agrees to accept more refugees. It's kind of funny when he says as developed as a tourist area, because you think a tourist area, it's a really small area. When you look at the size of Gaza, Gaza Strip, it's so small. It's tiny. It's a tiny little area. So to think of tourism, we're going to make a whole country into tourist. It's not a country. It's a small sliver piece of land. The pair met in the Oval Office, where Trump suggested he wouldn't withhold U.S. aid to Jordan or countries like Egypt, other Arab nations, if they agree to dramatically increase the number of people from Gaza they take in. You see where it is? He won't withhold aid. There it is. This idea that we just keep giving money to everyone and never get anything in return. So you want to continue the aid? You want to continue to get government assistance, U.S. government assistance to you who are not part of the nation? You're not citizens of the United States. You're not a colony. You're just another country, a sovereign nation. Then why are you receiving money from us? And if you are receiving money from us, well, we want something. So take in and dramatically increase the number of people from Gaza that they take in, and Egypt and Jordan and other Arab nations, he won't withhold their money. I don't have to threaten that. I do believe we're above that, Trump said. That contradicted the Republican president previously suggesting that holding back aid was a possibility. Let's keep going. Okay. North Korea said its military forces are ready to take any action necessary after a U.S. Navy fast attack nuclear submarine docked in a port in the South Korean city of Busan and accused the United States of posing a grave threat to its national security. All right, so here we go. We go right from Gaza to Korea. North Korea's state-run KCNA news agency on Tuesday quoted the country's Ministry of Defense is saying in a statement that the presence of a U.S. nuclear submarine on the Korean peninsula was a clear expression of the U.S. invariable hysteria for confrontation. We express grave concern over the U.S. dangerous hostile military act that can lead to acute military confrontation in the region around the Korean peninsula to an actual armed force conflict, the statement said. The ministry said North Korea would unhesitatingly exercise a legitimate right to punish the provokers, as it accused the U.S. of being a hegemonic entity which blindly believes in dominion through power. All right. So we're flexing our muscles. We're sending some ships. The ship was the USS Alexandria submarine docked at a Busan port on Monday for supplies, and to provide a rest for its crews, according to South Korea's defense ministry. The stop will also provide a chance for the South Korean and U.S. navies to exchange information, and formulate a combined defense posture, the military added. So Trump is he's got his fingers everywhere, and he's I don't want to say flexing in the sense that it's a negative thing. No. I mean, why can't we dock, right? Why can't we dock in South Korea? Why can't, there are allies. Why can't we exchange information? See, what Trump is doing is like Biden and the left is so afraid of confrontation. This isn't confrontation. This is you're exercising your relationships. You're deepening your relationships. You're also showing that the relationship is healthy. So these are the kind of things that I think that we need to really start looking at. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I got so riled up about the Pope's document. I raised my blood pressure. I got to go eat lunch. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. And tomorrow tomorrow I'm not going to be back. Tomorrow I got to go to, maybe I'll give you an update. So, and those of you who watch, Lori's doing her cancer treatment, and praise the Lord, everything's going well. But we go to, so on certain days I go with her, and I like to go with her because that's what I should do. And it's not because I should. I like to be there. So tomorrow we try to make the best of it. We almost make it like a date day. Isn't that funny? It's a chemo date day. I don't know. You got to make the best of stuff. So we'll go tomorrow. We'll get that done. Check off another box. Enjoy the day. And if you got somebody out there that you haven't seen in a while, it's always a good time to reach out. Spring is coming. The weather, I get really down, guys. I get up in the morning, and I gotta really, I tell you what I've been doing. So this is what I do. I light candles. I open the curtains. I wait for the sun. I get up before the sun. I don't let the sun. The sun starts to come up. I leave the candles on. I have a couple of books, and this is what I'll end with. See this little book right here? Look, Blessed Be God. These are the little type of books that, look at this. This is from I think it's 20 something. And it's really fantastic because when I look at this, and I wouldn't have had this if I didn't start this new rule in my life where I don't look at the phone or the computer for a few hours each morning. And it makes me it makes me search my own home, like a little explorer in my own house, and then I find these little books, and I open them up, and I don't know why we stop praying with these kind of prayers. They're so good, they're so strong, But anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.